It's August 8th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the latest on the World Scout Jamboree down in Saemangeum. South Korea's heatwave hit Scout Jamboree is ending early due to a typhoon warning. Scout members will evacuate the area today and be relocated to the Seoul metropolitan area. And Typhoon Khanun, which is causing the evacuation of Scout members, is likely to make landfall in the south this Thursday. The government has raised its disaster response to a level 2 alert. Another round of Russian missile attacks on a residential area in Ukraine. At least 5 people have died and 31 were wounded after 2 Russian missiles struck the center of a Ukrainian city in the eastern Donetsk region. Just when we thought we were nearing the end of the extreme summer heat, more weather woes lie ahead as a Typhoon Khanun approaches South Korea before reaching the southeastern coast this Thursday. Our Yi-seung starts us off.
Packing winds as fast as 44 meters per second, Typhoon Khanun is now expected to hit South Korea's southeastern region later this week. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration on Monday, the typhoon is set to arrive 90 kilometers southwest of Busan on Thursday. The agency warned that once it arrives on the Korean peninsula, the winds will be strong enough to derail a running train. After arriving the country's southeast, the typhoon is then expected to advance northward, making its way up the Korean peninsula. The weather agency also forecast that the typhoon could heavily impact Gangwon province, which may see up to 400 millimeters of rain, while other affected regions might see between 50 and 200 millimeters of precipitation. In response, the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters raised its disaster readiness alert level up a notch to level 2 from level 1 as of 6 p.m. Monday. According to Interior Minister Lee Sang-min, the government will aim to dedicate its administrative power to preventing casualties by restricting access to areas prone to disasters, such as mountains, underpasses, and old reservoir zones. The high alert comes as the recent monsoon season here in the country resulted in a number of casualties, including at an underpass near the city of Cheongju, where over a dozen people were killed when a riverbank collapsed and flooded the underpass. 이승재, Arirang News.
With Typhoon Khanun making its way up here, the World Scout Jamboree is bringing the curtains down early in South Korea's Saemangeum. Now, to ensure their safety, all participants there are leaving the campsite in the coming hours. Choi Soo-hyung tells us more.
On Monday morning, the 7th day of the 25th World Scout Jamboree in Saemangeum, the World Organization of the Scout Movement made a decision to expedite the departure of all participants from the campsite due to the anticipated impact of Typhoon Khanun. According to officials, the Scout teams are expected to departure the campgrounds gradually, starting at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 8th. Over 1,000 buses, interpreters, police officers, and emergency service personnel will be mobilized to move the Scouts safely. On the 6th day, the Korean Meteorological Administration stated that Typhoon Khanun was projected to move through Okinawa, Japan, and Taiwan before heading northeast toward the eastern part of China. However, on August 7th, it was forecasted to pass the northeastern waters of Okinawa and make landfall in Busan on the 10th before crossing through Korea. Considering the predicted path of the typhoon, it is expected to affect the Saemangeum Jamboree site in Buanggun County, Jeollabuk-do Province from Wednesday. The World Scout Organization said they made this decision to prioritize the safety of all the participants and continued its close collaboration with the Korea Scout Association and the South Korean government. South Korean government informed that they will soon provide a contingency plan for the departure and the venues that will host the participants. The accommodations and venues for the remaining events will be relocated to various places in Seoul and the metropolitan area, including university dormitories in downtown Seoul, corporate training facilities, and sports complexes. Furthermore, organizers say that the K-pop concert could take place on Friday, August 11th, and the closing ceremony the day after at Seoul World Cup Stadium. But nothing has been confirmed yet. The government says it will take every effort to expedite the departure plan and provide all necessary resources and support for participants during their stay and until they return to their home countries safely. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
So around 36,000 Scout members are now all packed and ready to move to be relocated. And the government is scrambling to secure alternative accommodation for them, all at the government's expense. Shin Se-byuk has more.
Jamboree Scouts may be leaving early, but programs will still continue.
We are setting up accommodations in the Seoul metropolitan area and seeking to partner with local authorities to combine their existing tourism and education activities so that the Jamboree can continue.
To start with, as for accommodation, the government is arranging hotels, school dormitories, and public facilities. Considering the nature of the Jamboree, which features group participation, factors such as providing convenience for group activities, meals, and shower facilities have to be taken into account. Therefore, guest houses have been excluded as an option. Seoul City has asked officials in 5 districts with large populations and numerous lodging options, namely Gangnam, Seocho, Songpa, Nowon, and Gangseogu districts, to find stay options that are capable of accommodating 1,000 people per site. The city government has also requested assistance in arranging accommodations for 500 people each in the other 20 districts. Officials are also gearing up to offer a diverse range of cultural experience programs for the Scouts. The Cultural Heritage Administration plans to open up national palaces across the country for free. Seoul City is also planning to change the schedule of existing summer festivals and curate special programs tailored to Jamboree participants. Major companies such as Samsung, SK, and Hyundai have also joined in to offer guided tours of their premises. Samsung Electronics will run a tour program of its chip factories in Gyeonggi-do Province. Hyundai Motor also plans to offer a tour of its factory for Scouts from the Netherlands, Japan, and Malaysia. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
And South Korea's top government officials will form an emergency response team to provide lodging and cultural programs for the Scouts members. Under President Yoon Suk-yeol's orders, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo will operate a pan-government response team from Tuesday. 11 ministers, the mayor of Seoul, and the police commissioner general are part of the emergency group. According to Yoon's office, the president asked the team to make every effort to safely transport the Scouts to the Seoul metropolitan area and coordinate lodging and cultural experience programs for them. Also returning early from his summer holiday, Yoon is likely to postpone his cabinet reshuffle as he addresses various public safety and weather-related concerns. Photos were shared last week of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited major weapons factories. Now, that such a visit was publicized is rare, and experts say the latest visit was more than just a tour. For more, we're joined by Mr. Frank Januzzi this morning. Welcome back to the program.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
So, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un last week inspected key weapons factories, right? Including those producing shells for larger caliber multiple rocket launchers and engines for strategic cruise missiles. Now, what was the purpose, would you say, of Kim's inspections?
Well, not since the Iran-Iraq War of the 1990s has North Korea faced such a favorable market in terms of demand for heavy munitions, multiple rocket launcher ammunition, heavy artillery, small arms, and light weapons. So North Korea clearly would love to try to tap into that market that has been created by Russia's invasion of Ukraine and is clearly exploring and has already begun exports of munitions to Russia in support of the Russian war effort. And I think that what Kim Jong-un is doing here is seizing the opportunity that has presented itself to modernize and upgrade their conventional weapons capabilities, which have frankly languished for decades as the North has invested heavily in ballistic missile technology and nuclear weapons.
So you're saying the North may be trying to secure a solid position in the weapons market globally, right?
They're trying to, despite the UN sanctions, which make such exports illegal, because you have a permanent 5 Security Council member, Russia, willing to do business with North Korea, and because China itself may not always be strict in the enforcement mechanisms to prevent the export of North Korean munitions, North Korea sees an opportunity here. And although the market is relatively small in global scale, we may be talking about hundreds of millions or $1 or $2 billion worth of exports. This is still a reasonably large number with respect to North Korea's total economy, which experts estimate may only be about $40 billion.
Sure. Another notable point during his tour, right? He used the expression, quote, national defense economic work for the very first time, apparently. Now, some experts say the North may be looking to raise foreign currency earnings and revitalize its sluggish economy through its defense industry. Is that so?
Well, I think that is a reasonable conclusion to judge by the statements coming out of the Korean Central News Agency. But I wouldn't want to overemphasize North Korea's ability to use arms exports as part of any general economic modernization. North Korea needs to undertake significant economic reforms if it really wants to get its local economy humming. But what this does afford Kim Jong-un is an opportunity to get cash to continue to finance his investments in nuclear weapons, in ballistic missile technology, as well as to reward his followers and keep the folks in Pyongyang happy. So I think it's an important development, and it represents North Korea essentially wanting to modernize and upgrade its conventional weapons capability and use it as a source of revenue to augment the cyber hacking revenue and other illicit forms of cash that are coming into the regime.
Then, that must be also in line with the recent speculation that North may be providing or already is capable of providing military weapons to Russia for its use against Ukraine, right?
Indeed. What we have seen is that Russia is so short on munitions in a time of intense conflict that Russia needs things like long-range multiple rocket launcher ammunition, long-range artillery ammunition. And even though North Korea's weapons here are quite antiquated, it's not state-of-the-art, but it is sufficient for Russia's purposes. And given the volume of munitions being used, clearly North Korea is an important or becoming an important potential source of supply to Russia. And I would highlight one other area, which is the area of unmanned aerial drones. We've seen Russia use these weapon systems repeatedly in the war against Ukraine, and North Korea recently displayed a variety of new drone technologies. And I think that North Korea would love to develop an export market for those, not just to Russia, but also to Iran and other states.
Looks like a solid win-win situation for the North and Russia at the moment.
A lose-lose for the world and a win-win for Russia, Ukraine.
Definitely. Now, before we let you go, recent satellite imagery shows that the North is actively preparing for its second attempt to launch the very first spy satellite, right? Now, the last launch took place on the last day of May, May 31st. Should we expect the second launch soon? I mean, when should it be?
Well, it's always hard to predict the precise timing, and even things like the weather and the upcoming typhoon may play a factor in North Korea's decision-making. What we know for certain is that North Korea is in a space race. They want to keep up with South Korea, and they desperately would like to develop at least a limited satellite Earth observation technology to enhance their situational awareness, their ability to track South Korean and American military maneuvers. So whether it happens in 2 weeks or 2 months, I can't say, but it'll happen. And the success of it or the failure of it will not deter North Korea from continuing to invest in satellite Earth observation technology. This is a high priority for the government.
Sure, definitely in the hands of the leader, Kim Jong-un. All right, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Very, very nice to have been in Korea a couple weeks ago and nice to speak with you this morning.
Efforts are being made to ensure security is tighter than ever here in South Korea following a series of online posts threatening terror attacks. Now, one area of concern is the nation's airports. Kim Do-yeon reports.
As South Korea continues to recover from recent violent attacks in public places and with threats of similar attacks being made online, the nation's airports have become targets. According to Incheon International Airport Corporation and Korea Airports Corporation on Monday, 5 airports in the country have received threats so far. The police is investigating a threat made towards Incheon International last week, which said that there is a bomb in the terminal and if people evacuate, they'll be run over by a truck. Jeju, Daegu, Gimpo, and Gimhae airports have all been the subject of terrorism threats online. Authorities say they have carried out security checks on them all and have found nothing of concern. They're also tracking the authors of these posts, but with the posts being done through a different IP address from overseas, it's taking the investigators some time. Despite no signs of actual danger, the situation has prompted the security around airports to be tightened, with Incheon Airport raising its vigilance level from attention to caution, increasing patrols and tightening employee identification at entries and exits. The KAC has reinforced patrols and security at 14 airports under its jurisdiction since Sunday afternoon. Meanwhile, as citizens recover from the shock of random attacks in public places, Justice Minister Han Dong-hoon has ordered the nation's prosecution to actively apply self-defense and justification rules for police and others using force to protect citizen safety. Growing concerns over safety have led to issues of police holding back from necessary physical confrontation, fearing punishment. This also comes as the nation's chief police officer recommended police officers use guns and tasers to take down a violent attacker. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The blistering heat has been such a pain for many this summer, but Air Force training continues under the sizzling summer heat here in Korea. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung shows us around some of the ways that the Air Force is beating the heat.
An F-15K fighter jet has just finished flying and is making its way to the shower to cool off. In the sweltering hot summer, it is important to cool off the heated jets and rinse off any salt formed when flying over the sea. While the jets cool down, pilots have to endure an apparent temperature of over 50 degrees Celsius under their pilot suits.
Fighter pilots fight head-on against the rays of the hot midsummer sun under a transparent canopy. I know that I have sweated a lot when I see my wet uniform.
Airmen and airwomen also get a short breather from the scorching heat while enjoying some papbingsu, Korean shaved ice dessert with red beans. But they are again quickly drenched with sweat as they load heavy missiles weighing more than 160 kilograms.
We are provided with short sleeves, so I wear those. There are also portable air conditioners, so I try to work while avoiding the heat.
The Air Force said it is working hard to prevent heat-related illnesses by implementing flexible flight times during heat waves at the commander's discretion. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Another member of BTS is set to join the military, this time Suga, who canceled his request to delay enlistment in order to begin his mandatory military service. According to his agency Big Hit Music on Monday, an announcement will be made on when he'll be joining as soon as the notice of enlistment is available. Now he'll become the third BTS member to serve in the military following Jin and J-Hope. Jin began his service back in December, while J-Hope joined in April. Here in South Korea, all able-bodied men are required to serve in the military for 18 to 21 months, depending on the branch.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in Ukraine, where at least 5 people have been killed and over 30 injured after Russian missiles struck the eastern city of Pokrovsk. Rescuers are searching for those trapped beneath the rubble. According to local officials, Russia launched 2 missile attacks on Monday local time, striking a hotel, residential buildings, and other civilian structures. Now, the first attack killed 4 civilians and the second killed 1 emergency official. These strikes come a day after Ukraine launched airstrikes, damaging 2 road bridges linking mainland-occupied Ukraine to Crimea. And 2 days after a wave of Russian missile and drone attacks on Ukraine killed 6 people and destroyed a blood transfusion center in Kupiansk. Now in Slovenia, at least 6 people have died and hundreds have been left homeless amid flooding that has been called the worst natural disaster to ever hit the country. Now, the flooding started over the weekend, submerging villages, washing away roads and causing $550 million of damage. It came after a month's worth of rain fell in less than a day. In response, the European Union and NATO have begun sending aid to Slovenia. The heavy rains also hit Austria, where 1 woman died after falling into a river in the southern village of Zollfeld. Austria also reported over 360 landslides. Croatia, meanwhile, has declared a state of emergency in parts of the country where roads, settlements and fields are submerged. Now, England have advanced to the quarterfinals of the 2023 Women's World Cup after beating Nigeria 4-2 on penalties, following a goalless draw. The European champions faced a tough battle against Nigeria in Brisbane on Monday, which was made tougher after England forward Lauren James was sent off for stepping on a Nigerian defender. But the Lionesses held on to take the match to a penalty shootout, where 4 successful spot kicks saw them move on to the next round. Australia also made it through to the quarterfinals after beating Denmark 2-0 in Sydney. England will face the winner of the match between Colombia and Jamaica, and Australia will square off against the winner of France against Morocco. And finally, director of the movies The Exorcist and The French Connection, William Friedkin, has died at the age of 87. According to his wife, the award-winning director died at his home in Los Angeles on Monday due to heart failure and pneumonia. His death comes just weeks before the release of his latest movie, The Kane Mutiny Court Martial. The legal drama is scheduled to premiere at the 80th Venice International Film Festival, which starts at the end of August. Friedkin began his career in the 1960s. His 1971 crime thriller, The French Connection, won 5 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. Horror classic The Exorcist, released 2 years later, won Best Screenplay and Best Sound.
Good morning. It's 입추 today, the beginning of autumn on the seasonal calendar, but temperatures continue to sizzle with Seoul enduring a 9th consecutive tropical night. Meanwhile, heavy passing rain is in the forecast for southwestern regions along with thunder and lightning. East of Gangwon-do province will see 60 millimeters of more rainfall. Saemangeum in Busan County continues to have intense heat with sudden rain forecast for the evening. Afternoon highs will hover around 35 degrees Celsius in most parts today. Now, Tropical Storm Khanun is moving slowly over waters of Kagoshima Prefecture, and by early Thursday will strike Korea's south coast before traveling up the peninsula to North Korea. Bands of active rain clouds will develop along with violent winds and high waves around the Korean peninsula and will start to feel the effect as early as tomorrow. Those taking a summer vacation need to remain on high alert. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time. Stay cool wherever you are.